You've seen the charts, you've probably seen the classic break-even math that says if you expect to live past 78, you should wait until 67 to claim Social Security, and if you don't, you should grab it at 62. It looks so clean and logical on paper. But what if that simple math is missing entirely critical real-world factors? Variables that could shift your actual break-even age by an entire decade and dramatically change the financial trajectory of your retirement? Today, we are taking a magnifying glass to the standard advice and calculating the real break-even age of 62 versus 67, stripping away the myths and looking purely at the app. Mechanics, I'm Tony, and welcome to Grow with Tony. We're here to unpack everyday financial puzzles so you can navigate your wealth with clarity. If you enjoy looking under the hood of retirement planning to see how the engine actually works, you're in the right spot. Just a quick note before we get started. What we are exploring today is an educational breakdown of financial mechanics, not personalized investment advice. So always run your own numbers and use your own judgment for your specific journey. All right, let's start by laying the foundation and looking at the trap that catches almost everyone, the napkin math. To understand the advanced mechanics, we first have to look at the baseline. Let's assume your full retirement age is 67. That applies to anyone born in 1960 or later. And by the way, if you were born before that, your own full retirement age lands somewhere between 66 and 67, so it is worth checking your exact number. A lot of people still believe it is 65. It is not. For the sake of round, easy numbers, let's assume your full benefit at 67 is exactly $2,000 a month. If you decide you want to access that income stream as early as legally possible and claim at age 62, the Social Security Administration applies a permanent reduction. For a full retirement age of 67, claiming at 62 results in a 30% reduction. Your $2,000 check is reduced to $1,400 a month. And that reduction does not reset. It lasts for the rest of your life. It also works in the other direction. If you wait past your full retirement age, you earn what are called delayed retirement credits, worth 8% per year for anyone born in 1943 or later. Those credits stop at age 70, so there is no reason to wait longer than that. For a full retirement age of 67, waiting until 70 adds 24%, which turns that same $2,000 benefit into $2,480 a month. Same work record, $1,400, $2,000, or roughly $2,500 a month, depending entirely on when you start. So why do so many people look at those numbers and happily accept the $1,400? It comes down to the undeniable power of a head start. By claiming at 62, you receive checks for 5 full years, 60 months, before you even blow out the candles on your 67th birthday. 60 months of $1,400 checks equals exactly $84,000 in your pocket. Picture the scenario. On your 67th birthday, the person who patiently waited finally receives their very first $2,000 check while the person who claimed early is sitting on an $84,000 lead. The one who waited is now playing catch-up, and their only tool is that they receive $600 more every month. So how long does $600 a month take to close? An $84,000 gap? Divide 84,000 by 600, and you get 140 months, which is 11 years and 8 months. Add that to age 67, and you arrive at a break-even age of 78 and 8 months. Let's call it just shy of 79. This is where human psychology takes over. People look at that number, 79, and then they look at the life expectancy statistics they have heard their whole life. The ones that hover around 76 for men and 81 for women. The immediate, understandable reaction is, if I have to survive until almost 79 just to break even, on waiting, I might as well take the money now, travel, and enjoy my early 60s. But here's the problem with that comparison. Those familiar numbers are life expectancy at birth. They include everyone who never made it to 62 in the first place. Once you have actually survived to 62, the math changes, and it changes in a way that matters enormously for this decision. According to the Social Security Administration's own period life table for 2023, the one used in the 2026 Trustees Report, a man who reaches age 62 is expected to live about 20 more years on average, which takes him to roughly 82. A woman who reaches 62 is expected to live about 23 more years, which takes her to roughly 85. Sit with that for a second, because it is the most misunderstood point in this entire conversation. The break-even age is just shy of 79, and the average 62-year-old is already expected to live past it. People are comparing the break-even age to the wrong number and then making a permanent decision based on that comparison. An average is still not a prediction about you specifically, and your health and family history matter far more than a national table. But if the napkin math was the only reason you were leaning towards 62, that reason just got a lot weaker. And that basic calculation still ignores the real-world mechanics of how Social Security interacts with the rest of your financial life. The first variable that disrupts the napkin math is the cost of living adjustment, or COLA. Social Security benefits are adjusted annually to keep pace with inflation. It is easy to view that as just a nice little bump to offset the rising cost of groceries. But structurally, it functions like compound interest, and here is the mechanic, the standard break-even. Math misses. The adjustment is a percentage applied to your base benefit amount. For a sense of scale, the average annual adjustment since 2006 has been right around 2.5%, according to Social Security's own published history. If you take your money at 62, that increase is applied to your reduced $1,400 check, so the raise is small. If you wait until 67, the exact same percentage is applied to a full $2,000 check. Over time, that creates a compounding divergence. At 67, the gap between the two checks was exactly $600. But after years of adjustments on two different base amounts, the person who waited is pulling meaningfully further ahead every year, because the larger benefit snowballs faster in absolute dollars. The gap closes quicker than that original 140-month projection. When I model it with that 2.5% average, the break-even point moves from just shy of 79 down to somewhere around 76.5. That is an estimate, not a promise, and it depends on the inflation you actually live through. But the direction is what matters. Inflation adjustments pull the break-even age earlier, not later. And the bigger base keeps protecting your purchasing power for as long as you live. Now let's explore the other side of the coin. What if you don't actually need the Social Security money to survive at 62? What if your mortgage is paid off, you have a solid pension, or you have accumulated enough savings to live comfortably and you decide to take Social Security early strictly to invest it? This introduces the concept of opportunity cost, and it is a fascinating mathematical pivot. Let's say you take that $1,400 a month, starting at age 62, and instead of spending it on vacations or home repairs, you invest every single penny of it into a broad market index fund. For this example, let's assume a 6% return after inflation. I want to be very clear that this is an assumption, not a promise. Nobody can tell you what the market will actually deliver over the next 5, 10, or 30 years. With that assumption, the math gets aggressive. By age 67, you haven't just saved $84,000 in a checking account. Thanks to market returns and compounding, that account would have grown to roughly $98,000. And the engine doesn't stop there. Even though you are receiving a smaller monthly check from then on, that nest egg keeps generating returns year after year. When you run the projections with investment returns on the early money, the break-even age gets pushed hard in the opposite direction. Depending on market performance, the point where waiting to 67 finally catches up can land in the mid to late 80s, and in strong markets even further out. To an analytical planner, that looks like a definitive victory for 62. But before you build a plan around it, there are two risks you have to be honest about: behavior and market timing. First, behavior. It takes unwavering discipline to invest 100% of a Social Security check every month for 5 years and then never touch the principal. In the real world, a roof needs replacing, medical bills show up, or a child needs help with a down payment. The moment those funds get spent instead of invested, the advanced math shatters and you are left permanently with the 30% reduction. Second, market timing. Delaying Social Security is a formula-driven increase. Every month you wait between 62 and 67, that reduction shrinks by an amount written into the rules. The stock market promises nothing of the kind. If you claim early to invest and then walk into a prolonged downturn, your investments could lose value right out of the gate while you have already locked in a permanent cut to a lifelong, inflation-adjusted income stream. You are trading something formula-driven for something probabilistic. At the exact moment you may need stability most. Let's add another layer. What if you want to claim at 62, but you also plan to keep working your current job? This is where a lot of well-intentioned retirement plans hit a brick wall because of a mechanic known as the earnings test. If you claim Social Security before your full retirement age and you continue to earn income from a job, the system places a limit on how much you can make before your benefits get reduced. In 2026, if you are under full retirement age for the whole year, that limit is $24,480. Earn more than that, and $1 in benefits is withheld for every $2 you earn. Above the line, there is a friendlier version of the rule in the specific year you reach full retirement age. In 2026, that limit rises to $65,160, and only $1 is withheld for every $3 above it, counting only what you earn before the month you hit full retirement age. And starting with the month you reach full retirement age, the limit disappears completely. You can earn whatever you like and your benefit is untouched. Just keep in mind that both of those dollar limits are adjusted every year. So check the official Social Security site for the current figures. If you are earning a healthy full-time salary at 62, your checks could be almost entirely absorbed by that limit. To be fair, that money is not confiscated. When you reach full retirement age, your benefit is recalculated to credit you for the withheld months. So it comes back gradually over the rest of your life. But look at what you just did strategically. You triggered a permanent reduction at 62 and then had those very checks withheld because you were still earning. That is a bottleneck with very little upside, and stacked on top of it is what people call the tax torpedo. Social Security benefits are not automatically tax-free. Depending on what Social Security calls your combined income, which is half of your benefit plus your other income, part of your benefit can become taxable. That starts above $25,000 if you file individually, or $32,000 if you file jointly. If you are working full-time at 62 and you switch on your benefits, you are layering that income directly on top of your salary, which makes crossing those thresholds very likely. So you took a 30% cut to get the money early and then handed a slice of it to the tax bill. Stacking earned income and early Social Security is usually a rough combination. There is one more force that rarely shows up in the basic spreadsheet math, and that is healthcare. Once you are enrolled in Medicare, your Part B premium is typically deducted straight out of your Social Security check before the money ever reaches your bank account. So what actually lands in your account is your benefit minus healthcare. That is where the size of your base check quietly matters. If you claim at 62 and lock in a smaller benefit, that deduction takes a bigger bite out of a smaller check every month for the rest of your life. The larger base check gives you a wider buffer as healthcare costs rise over a 20 or 30-year retirement. One practical warning while we are here: Medicare and Social Security are separate decisions. Even if you are delaying your benefit, sign up for Medicare around 65, because signing up late can make your coverage cost you more. Up to this point, we have analyzed the mechanics as if you are a single person navigating retirement alone. But if you are married, focusing only on your own life expectancy and your own break-even age can be a profound structural mistake. This brings us to the most important variable of all: survivor benefits. The rule is simple, but the consequences are enormous. When one spouse passes away, the surviving spouse keeps the higher of the two Social Security checks. The smaller check goes away. They cannot collect both at the same time. Although they are allowed to switch between benefits later, for example, taking a survivor benefit first and then moving to their own benefit at 70 if that one has grown larger. Let's trace it. Imagine you are the primary earner. You look at the Napkin Math, decide you want the money early, and claim at 62, permanently reducing your benefit to that $1,400 mark. A few years into retirement, you pass away unexpectedly. Your spouse, who may outlive you by 10, 15, or 20 years, steps into the survivor benefit, and they are now anchored to that reduced check for the rest of their life. Had you delayed until 67, they would have inherited the full $2,000 benefit, along with every cost of living adjustment stacked on top of it. One detail worth knowing: the survivor's own timing matters too. A survivor benefit can start as early as 60, but at that age, it is only 71. And 0.5% of the amount, and it climbs the longer they wait, reaching 100% at the survivor's own full retirement age. So as a married couple, this is not just about how long you might live. It is about joint life expectancy, meaning how long the longest living spouse survives. And in a healthy couple, the odds that at least one of them lives deep into their 80s are high. For the higher earner, delaying is not really a bet on your own longevity. It works more like an inflation-adjusted safety net for whoever is left behind. So where does this leave us when we step back and look at the whole board? Once you move past the basic 140-month napkin math and add in compounded inflation, market risk, taxes, healthcare, and spousal protection, the picture gets much clearer. Claiming at 62 is worth seriously evaluating if you have real health concerns and reasonably expect a shorter than average life. If you are single, with no one depending on a survivor benefit, and you need the money now, or if you are debt-free with low overhead and taking the reduced amount lets you walk away from a demanding job today without needing the market to cooperate. Delaying tends to be the stronger structure if you are the higher earner in a marriage and want to protect your spouse with the largest possible survivor benefit. If you plan to keep working through your early 60s and would rather sidestep the earnings test and the tax pile-up entirely, or if you expect a long life and want the biggest inflation-adjusted income floor for the years when healthcare costs are highest, the true break-even point is never a static number on a spreadsheet. It is the point where the math meets your health, your marriage, your job, and your tolerance for risk. So, what should you actually do with all of this? Here are the concrete steps. First, go to the official Social Security website and open a My Social Security account. Do not plan around the round numbers I used in this video. Look at your own estimate at 62, at your full retirement age, and at 70. Those three numbers are the real inputs to your decision. Second, confirm your own full retirement age from your birth year. It is not automatically 65, and that one number drives every other calculation we did today. Third, if you are married, plan this as a couple instead of as two separate people, and look at the survivor benefit together. In a lot of households, the structure that makes sense is the higher earner leaning toward waiting while the lower earner claims earlier. Fourth, if you are still working and thinking about claiming early, compare your expected income to the earnings test limit first, so your first check does not arrive much smaller than you pictured. And fifth, sign up for Medicare around 65 no matter what you decide about Social Security. Now I'd love to pass the question over to you. After layering in these variables, from the tax torpedo to survivor benefits, what is your strategy? Are you leaning toward the immediate cash flow of 62 or the structural strength of 67? Drop your reasoning in the comments below, because dissecting these different perspectives is how we all learn. And if you found this breakdown helpful, hit that subscribe button to keep unpacking these financial realities with the Grow with Tony community. Remember, your retirement strategy shouldn't rely on napkin math. It should be built on mechanics you understand. I'll see you in the next one.